What's up, everyone? Paulie Malignaggi of Paulie TV. Benavidez versus Andrade is over. And man, what a statement for David Benavidez. An emphatic stoppage win. It's getting more and more difficult to excuse the fact that this guy cannot get a title shot. Canelo Alvarez is the undisputed champion, so he's got all the belts. So in order for this guy to get a much-deserved title shot, it would have to come against Canelo Alvarez. But more into that in a little bit. Right now, let's discuss the fight. Going into the fight, I thought that Benavidez would kind of start slow, the way he usually does, and Andrade would start fast, the way he usually does, and then the roles would reverse, the way they usually do for these guys, where Benavidez is typically a guy who comes out later in the fight and it increases the pressure and takes over more and more, makes you suffer through it, and Andrade kind of fades a little bit. Well, you know what? I was curious about any adjustments both guys might make. I could see Benavidez tried to press Andrade a little bit more early on than the usual, but still, Andrade came out with his usual fast start, and it was very, very sharp in the early going. I thought at the end of the first round, he threw a nice salvo at the bell to really punctuate the first round. But in the second and third round, I thought he took really good control, but he just was not able to hold on to that. And that is usually his problem has been the stamina. But in this particular case, I think it was exacerbated more by the fact that Benavidez's pressure is more than the usual opponent. And also, he's a naturally bigger physical guy. This is only Andrade's third fight at super middleweight, while, we've got other guys that might be more naturally that size. And Andrade, let's face it, he was never a big puncher even at his natural weight. So was he ever going to be a big puncher at 168 against a solid, big, elite guy? I thought Andrade boxed very well and really showed his quality for a couple of rounds. But honestly, the bigger, stronger guy who ultimately also proved to be better, kind of showed his class as the fight progressed. Once Andrade was starting to get hurt, once he started to feel that pressure, he was never really able to slow the pace down again. And Andrade has a lot of methods to really control the pace. He changes looks, he changes levels. He's a physical guy on the inside, which he was early in the fight as well. He was trying to be kind of a bully, the way he usually does. I never found Andrade to be as boring as people used to always criticize him for, because he's never just a safety first boxer all the time. He gets in there and he mugs you and he's physical. The thing about mugging a bigger guy, though, is it's going to take a lot more energy out of you. So for a guy like Andrade, who usually fades, it makes it much more difficult to try to mug a guy like Benavidez, who's physically bigger, naturally stronger and bigger. So in doing that stuff, he did have some success with it early on, but I think it also sped up the fatiguing process, because usually Andrade kind of starts to fade slowly. He still wins decisions, obviously, and he stops some guys. He's undefeated coming into the fight. But I thought that once Benavidez turned the fight around, it would be about a 9th round stoppage, But Benavidez made this thing turn quick. I mean, this thing turned into a 180-degree turn quick. It made a 180-degree turn quick around the 4th round, and that was it. Andrade could not get control back of the fight. He could not get control back of the pace, and really, really was suffering through it. I thought a good stoppage by Thomas Taylor. I thought Thomas Taylor also gave Andrade every single opportunity he could to continue, so credit to him as well. And Andrade really, his body language was sort of you kind of knew he was spent. Even the way he was throwing those punches. If you look at his early combinations, they were coming out nice and snappy, crisp. You were really impressed with Andrade in the first few rounds. But by that 5th and 6th round, he was trying to get Benavidez off him, and he was just arm weary. So on top of the fact that it's difficult to get Benavidez off of you, even with sharp, snappy punches, let alone when you're going to throw those arm weary punches. So the end was inevitable. An impressive stoppage for David Benavidez, who was closing the gap very well, went to the body very well. Also, really finds the space inside very well, and not just that, doesn't allow you to smother him when he finds that space. A lot of times, the reaction when you get it with a good shot on the inside is to kind of get closer and smother and force a break. Well, Andrade wanted to do that, especially he did that early on, when he would throw his own shots and then smother Benavidez from being able to return fire. Well, the role kind of reversed as the fight went on, because now Benavidez was trying to mow Andrade down, and Andrade was trying to kind of smother him. So Andrade would take a shot or two, and he would try to smother Benavidez just to be able to rest. But Benavidez would throw those couple of shots and then extend his hand out just to kind of push him off and keep the spacing just enough to where he could throw more hurtful punches. Because remember, you need a little bit of spacing to be able to put enough emphasis on your shots. You don't want to smother yourself. So Benavidez also has the presence of mind to throw those couple of short shots on the inside and then make sure he keeps creating that space so that all the punches he's throwing in there they continue to be hurtful. Really, really impressed with David Benavidez. I think it's really, really a shame at this point that if he doesn't get the title shot with Canelo Alvarez, it's kind of a blessing and a curse for Canelo Alvarez to be the undisputed champion, because from one perspective it's a beautiful accomplishment, but from the other perspective, since you have all the titles, it makes it more and more inexcusable for a guy this impressive to not be given a title fight. I mean, it's an outright duck at this point, and it really, really is tough to defend. I mean, it doesn't matter who he fights. I mean, I'm hearing he's going to fight Munguia, which probably is a fun fight. But if you have all of the titles, you should either be stripped for not giving Benavidez a title shot, or you should be forced to fight Benavidez. It cannot happen that David Benavidez continues to look this impressive and doesn't get a title fight. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's no defense for this. It's absolutely appalling that this is allowed to happen. You know, a guy this good. If there were other titles that were vacant, hey, listen, you could create the whole scenario about, hey, this guy's got titles and the other guy's got titles, and they can't come to terms for one reason or another. But bro, this is the blessing and the curse of the undisputed title. The blessing, I explained it to you already. But the curse is, there is no excuse now to not fight David Benavidez. There's absolutely no excuse. It's an outright duck. I mean, there's no shot. Any excuse is feasible at this point, because you have all the titles, and this guy is screaming from the top of the hills with his performances, not even with his mouth, with his performances, that this is the most deserving guy of a title fight, and is not getting it. So really, I'm really hoping that we can see this fight next year. The better David Benavidez looks, I think the worse it's going to look for Canelo, and I think he knows that too. And I don't see him wanting to fight Benavidez. He should have fought him when he was first ascending. He couldn't age out Benavidez the way he aged out Golovkin, because Benavidez is younger, and now the problem is starting to really show itself even more as Benavidez is coming to his prime years and just looks so strong and so good that it doesn't look very good for Canelo's chances to win the fight. And honestly, personally, me, seeing a guy like Canelo who commands so much money, I could literally see him just not taking the fight at all. You know, which I think is a very big stain on his legacy. I'm sorry. You win the undisputed title, like I said, there's a blessing and a curse. There's a responsibility there to defend it this way, or at least to have vacated the title long ago. Long ago vacated these titles so that he didn't have to be so pressed to fight Benavidez. Because the longer he holds on to these titles, he's defending out of the weight class, he's doing other stuff. Meantime, Benavidez is just showing himself to be more and more impressive. So it's going to be really inexcusable if they don't make this fight. And I do think Canelo Munguia is a fun fight. I just don't think it's the fight to make at this point. And David Morrell's also in the background, also looking very good as well. A really solid weight class we got at super middleweight. On the undercard, Matias, very impressive. Briefly, Matias, I was super impressed with Matias. I thought Ergashev would win the fight. That's how. So think about how impressed I was with Matias. Matias's feet still kind of bother me a little bit. He's not really doesn't really have the best footwork, but he does close the gap. He cuts you off, and he knows how to throw those short combinations and hurtful punches. Knows how to make them count on the inside. And Ergashev really was trying to fight fire with fire. You kind of need a jab on its own to really trouble a guy like Matias, I feel. You know, you can't really fight fire with fire, because he's going to continue to come forward regardless, and then his fire is going to overcome you, because he's also a guy who's very well conditioned and forces a tough pace. So I personally think that to fight Matias, you need a guy who knows how to use a jab, a versatile jab, and just can kind of keep him off balance. And from that perspective, you know, you win rounds and you start to frustrate him in different ways. Ergashev didn't have that kind of wrinkle in his style. He has good feet and he has a good in and out, but he doesn't have the jab on its own. It's all power, really. It was all 1-2s and 1-2-3-4s and just trying to really, he thought he would, you know, he's got 20 knockouts and 23 wins, so he thought he would be hitting Matias, and Matias would be easy to hit, and eventually he would stop coming forward. Well, once that didn't happen, Ergashev had no answers at all. Listen, I'm not a doctor. I don't want to go straight to criticism, but it looked like he quit to me. It looked like a quit job to me there. So Matias, another little feather in his hat is now he's passed Lomachenko as for the most stoppages for a guy who makes stoppages from guys sitting on the stool. It won't come out for the next round. Really impressive, because this is a guy who not only hits hard, but he's also a guy who it makes you so uncomfortable with that pace. And a guy who brings that pace and hits that hard, I mean, it's really a nightmare to fight in a lot of ways. And you know, Benavidez kind of has that too, you know, in a different way, in a bit of a different style, but nonetheless, kind of they both have similar strengths in that way. Jamal Charlo briefly against Jose Benavidez. I thought I thought Jose, performed pretty well. In a weight class that's really weak, middleweight, I wouldn't mind Jose Benavidez actually trying to mix in there and staying at middleweight and maybe finding himself in a title fight that he can actually win. I think he's been used as a sort of a high-priced opponent. He's solid, he's good, but I think if he in the middleweight division, a middleweight division that is so empty and devoid of talent, aside from maybe guys like Janabek, there are openings there for a guy like Jose Benavidez to possibly get a title shot in a fight where he'd be the A side instead of just being a high-priced B side. A good win for Jamal. It was good to see him back, but lots to work on. I thought his offense was pretty sharp. Do some good punches, but ultimately no head movement. I thought he got hit way too much, and I didn't really like the way he sounded in his post-fight interview. Hopefully he's kind of getting better from that mental aspect that he's been kind of troubled with. It'd be good to see him back, but I think Caleb playing to his ringside, so was salivating at the chance to get Charlo in the next fight, because they had that bad beef with that slap heard around the world, and it kind of makes sense that Charlo would fight Caleb next. Caleb obviously looking for a re-entry fight as well, coming off of the Benavidez loss himself. So Charlo still on the re-entry as well, not looking so great. I think this could be a good little crossroads matchup between Caleb Plant and Jamal Charlo. But I think if I'm Caleb Plant, I'm probably licking my chops at the chance to get Charlo after the way he looked yesterday. Like I said, Charlo didn't look terrible. Offensively, he looked pretty sharp in some ways. But you had a Benavidez who was standing right in front of him, so you couldn't really miss him. But at the same time, no head movement and got hit way too much. And that's my breakdown pretty much, I'm Paulie Malignaggi. This is Paulie TV. A good win on the closeout by Lamont Roach as well. He wins his first world title. Congratulations to Lamont Roach. But yes, Paulie Malignaggi. This is Paulie TV. Comment, like, subscribe, and let me know what you guys thought of the entire show last night. And for the Canelo blowhards, don't go easy on me. Well, you go easy on me. Canelo's not going to fight Benavidez. Go easy.